These are the individuals who disguise manipulation as curiosity. The more you explain, the more they distort your words, drain your energy, and make you feel as if you owe them an explanation for simply existing. And by the time you recognize their game, you've already given them too much influence. Here's the reality. You don't need to justify yourself to those who twist your words. True strength lies in restraint, detachment, and self-awareness. So, how do you break free from their grasp without feeling guilty? Stay with me until the end, because the final point is the most dangerous one of all. One of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that some people just need a clearer explanation. We think if we just phrase things the right way, they'll finally see our side. But the truth? They've already made up their minds. They don't see you for who you really are. They see a version of you that fits their narrative, maybe as a scapegoat, an adversary, or a stepping stone to elevate themselves. And no matter how much you explain, they won't change their stance. Why? Because for them, perception matters more than truth. Imagine standing in front of an immovable wall, trying to reason with it. You bring logic, evidence, even vulnerability, but the wall remains the same. That's what it's like arguing with someone who has already decided who you are. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Instead of convincing people with words, let your actions speak. The right ones will see the truth without you saying a thing. I once dealt with someone who constantly misjudged me. No matter what I did, they always assumed the worst. So one day, I simply stopped explaining. I stopped defending myself. I just lived authentically. And over time, others began to see the truth for themselves. The person who misjudged me, they either had to shift their perspective or reveal their bias. Either way, I was free. Ever had someone take your words out of context? You think you're clearing up a misunderstanding, but suddenly, your own explanations are twisted into ammunition against you. That's because some people don't seek understanding. They seek control. They listen, not to comprehend, but to extract something they can use against you later. They isolate a sentence, exaggerate a meaning, or reframe your words to paint you in a bad light. Think of it like fueling a fire. Every word you offer is like adding more wood to flames. At first, it seems harmless, but soon, the fire is raging and you're trapped in something you unknowingly helped grow. As Seneca put, silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings. When you speak less, you give them less material to manipulate. Your words should be valuable, not freely given to those looking for ways to twist them. I've been in situations where someone constantly misrepresented my words. No matter how carefully I phrased things, they found a way to distort them. Eventually, I realized I was only feeding their game, so I stopped engaging. And without my words to twist, they had nothing left to weaponize. If someone habitually twists your words, don't keep giving them more to work with. Not every accusation needs a rebuttal. Save your words for those who genuinely seek understanding, not those looking to manipulate you. In the end, your words should build, not defend against deception. The best way to counter those who distort your truth. There's one thing that quietly destroys your peace: wasting energy explaining yourself to people who will never listen. You clarify. You repeat yourself. You think if you just find the right words, they'll finally understand. But no matter how much effort you pour in, nothing changes. Instead, you're left exhausted, frustrated, and emotionally depleted. Here's the truth. Every time you justify yourself to someone who refuses to listen, you give away your power. They don't want an explanation. They want a reaction. They want to pull you into an endless debate, keeping you stuck in a loop of proving yourself rather than progressing. Imagine pouring water into a bottomless pit. You keep giving, thinking it will eventually fill up, but no matter how much you pour, the pit remains empty. That's exactly what happens when you try to reason with people who don't want to understand you. The one who constantly worries over meaningless fears ends up creating real ones. In other words, the more you expend your energy on things that hold no true significance, like try to persuade someone who refuses to understand, the more you deplete yourself of the strength needed for what actually matters. I remember a time when I kept explaining myself to someone who was never going to see things from my perspective. Every discussion felt like an uphill battle. I defended my choices, and they kept shifting the argument to keep me on the defensive. Then one day, I realized something. They weren't listening. They just thrived on keeping me stuck, making me feel like I had to justify myself endlessly. So, I made a change. I stopped explaining. I let my actions do the talking. And guess what happened? Nothing. The moment I disengaged, they lost their hold over me, and I walked away with my energy intact. First, recognize when a conversation is draining you rather than bringing clarity. That's a clear sign to step back. Second, stop engaging. Not everyone is entitled to an explanation, especially those who have no intention of understanding. And finally, redirect your energy. Instead of wasting time on fruitless arguments, invest in personal growth, improvement, and progress. At the end of the day, your energy is precious. Don't waste it trying to prove yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Protect your peace, walk away, and focus on what truly matters. Let's talk about a difficult but liberating truth. Other people's opinions of you have nothing to do with you. People will make assumptions, form judgments, and create narratives about you based on their own insecurities and experiences. But here's the key. Their perception isn't a reflection of your reality. It's a mirror of their own mind. Someone insecure might call you arrogant. Someone dishonest may assume you're lying. Someone who fears failure may dismiss your dreams as unrealistic. They don't see you as you truly are. They see you through the lens of their own experiences and emotions. Think of it like looking at a beautiful view through a stained and cracked window. No matter how breathtaking the scenery, the distortions on the glass will warp the image. That's how judgment works. People interpret reality through the filter of their own biases. This is where wisdom comes in. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, "What others think of you is none of your concern." You can't control their perception, but you can control how you respond. The best response? Detach from their judgment and stay anchored in your truth. I remember dealing with someone who constantly misjudged me. No matter what I did, they had a way of twisting it. If I was quiet, I was too serious. If I spoke up, I was too much. At first, I tried to explain myself, thinking that if they just saw the truth, they'd understand. But then I realized they didn't want to see clearly. Their perception wasn't about me. It was about them. So I stopped trying to change their mind. I let them believe whatever they wanted while I stayed true to myself. And you know what? Their opinion didn't change, but my peace did. Stop explaining. Their judgment was never really about you to begin with. Detach emotionally. You can't control their thoughts, but you can control how much weight you give them. Stay authentic. The right people will see you for who you truly are. No explanations needed. At the end of the day, you have no power over how others see you, but you do have power over how much it affects you. Let them project their doubts, fears, and assumptions. It has nothing to do with you. Stay grounded in your truth and let their opinions fade into the background. These people aren't looking for understanding or meaningful conversation. They want to push your buttons, stir emotions, and keep you caught in an exhausting cycle of defense and frustration. They don't win by proving a point. They win by getting a reaction. The more you engage, the deeper you fall into their trap. If they can make you upset, defensive, or angry, they've succeeded. Instead of standing firm in your truth, you end up wasting energy to justify yourself to someone who was never listening to begin with. Think of it like wrestling a pig. There's an old saying, never wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. That's exactly what happens when you engage in pointless emotional battles. You lower yourself into the mud, thinking you can reason with them, but all you're doing is giving them what they want, a reaction. So what's the solution? Stoic wisdom teaches us that the best way to win an emotional battle is to refuse to fight. When you remain calm, detached, and unaffected, you take away the only power they have, the ability to provoke you. Eventually, they lose interest, because there's no satisfaction in trying to rile up someone who refuses to engage. I once knew someone who loved to exploit my weaknesses. They'd make passive-aggressive comments, slip insults into jokes, and then sit back, waiting for me to react. At first, I'd explain myself, argue my point, even get upset. And every time they'd smirk because they had won. Then one day, I changed my approach. I stopped reacting. I stopped explaining. I stopped taking the bait. Instead of engaging, I'd simply smile and say, here's how to deal with people like this. Recognize the game. If someone keeps provoking you, understand that their goal isn't clarity, it's control. Stay emotionally detached. The moment you refuse to react, you take away their power. Respond with calm indifference. A simple nod or neutral response like noted can be more powerful than any argument. At the end of the day, some people don't want resolution. They want drama. Don't give them what they're looking for. Protect your peace by refusing to play their game. They had exhausted all their options, left with nothing to fight back. First, recognize the trap. If someone keeps dragging you into emotional conflicts, it's intentional. Manipulators thrive on reactions, but only if you give them one. Stay composed, stay grounded, and always remember, the most powerful person in the room is the one who refuses to be manipulated. If you made it this far, drop a thank God in the comments and give us a like if you found it valuable. Your support keeps me motivated to create more insightful content. Let's keep learning and growing together. Thank you. One of the most frustrating behaviors is when someone manipulates while pretending to be the victim. No matter how much you explain or provide evidence, they always twist things in their favor. They avoid accountability, shift blame onto you, and act as if they're the one who has been wronged. The truth is, some people don't seek resolution. They seek pity. They orchestrate situations to appear helpless while being the cause of the problem. The more you try to defend yourself, the deeper you fall into their web. They'll cry, guilt trip, and distort reality until suddenly you're apologizing for something you never did. It's like playing a game where the rules constantly change, always to their benefit. The only way to win? Stop playing. This is where Stoic wisdom applies. You cannot control how others perceive you. Peace comes from detachment, not from proving yourself. When you disengage, you strip them of their power. I once dealt with someone who always turned things around on me. Whenever I confronted them, they'd feign hurt. I can't believe you think that of me. Instead of addressing the issue, they shifted focus to their feelings. I'd find myself comforting them rather than holding them accountable. Then one day, I stopped explaining. I simply said, I see what's happening. No arguments, no defenses, just quiet acknowledgement. And suddenly, they had nothing left to twist. First, stop justifying yourself. If they refuse to take responsibility, that's on them. Second, set firm boundaries. The moment you see the pattern, step back and refuse to get entangled in their emotional drama. Finally, let them play the victim, but without your involvement. You don't need to prove your truth when it speaks for itself. At the end of the day, manipulators use victimhood as a defense, but only if you let them. The best strategy? Disengage, detach, and let them play their role without an audience. Because real accountability exposes false narratives. A common trap people fall into is feeling obligated to explain their choices. Whether it's setting boundaries, prioritizing personal growth, or making decisions for your well-being, some people will always demand an explanation. Your decisions, your peace, and your boundaries don't require anyone's approval. Yet, some individuals act as though they do. They'll question you, guilt trip you, and try to make you feel selfish for putting yourself first. But their reaction says more about their entitlement than it does about your need to justify yourself. Think of it like a locked door. You don't leave your door open for anyone who demands entry. You lock it for your safety, comfort, and peace. The same principle applies to your choices. You don't owe access to those who don't respect your space. Just because someone knocks doesn't mean you have to let them in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the key. Stand by your choices without needing to explain them. If you know your decision is right for you, that's all that matters. I once set boundaries with someone who constantly drained my energy. When I stopped over-explaining myself, they became defensive. Why are you acting like this? What did I do? At first, I felt the urge to justify my decision, but then I realized I didn't owe them an explanation. I simply said, this is what's best for me. No debate, no defense. And just like that, they had nothing left to argue with. That's when I learned the strongest boundary is the one you don't feel the need to justify. First, stop over-explaining. If someone can't respect your decision without justification, they wouldn't have respected it with one either. Second, stand firm. Your peace doesn't need permission. And finally, remember, true understanding comes from those who don't need an explanation to respect your choices. At the end of the day, you don't have to justify your boundaries, your growth, or your peace. The best response? Move forward without explanation